are some crazy things that I've done, like, recently. No judgment, girlies, no judgment, but whatever. This guy liked me on Hinge, and he was a promoter and was like, hey, like, come to PhD tonight, like that dumb shit that the promoters say. And so I don't know what I was on, but I was like, I'm gonna fuck with this guy. Like, I'm just gonna fuck with him. And I responded, hey, like, I can't go to PhD. I got kicked out because my friend lost her hand there. Like, she fully lost her hand got chopped off. Because I'm like, why not fuck with him? Like, I don't know him. It's gonna be funny. And it was. Happy. This man's like, what the fuck do you mean your friend lost her hand there? I'm like, yeah, her hand completely like fell off at PhD, and like they won't let us back in because she lost her hand there, and there's like a huge lawsuit going on. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm like, my best friend lost her hand. It was her right hand too, and she's a righty. Like, she can't fucking write anymore. So like, no, I'm not allowed in PhD. I can't go, and I fucking hate that place. So like, thank you so much for bringing it up. And this man's like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry. She lost her hand. Like, that's so horrible. Like, what happened? Like, how did she lose her hand though? And I'm just like not answering that. And then I'm like, yeah, but I think she's just like super fucking dramatic. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, she lost her hand. I guess that's like a big deal. But like, I just think she's being like extra fucking dramatic about this. And this man's like, what? Your friend literally lost her hand. I'm like, yeah, we all have challenges in this world. Like, I don't have a dad. She lost a hand. Like, we win some, we lose some. And this man's like, what the fuck? And I'm just like really still fucking with him because like I find it funny, and I just like, you're like, Livy, why are you doing this? I love sending this shit to my friends to like make them laugh too. So like, I'm like, why the fuck not? Like, I don't know this man. I'm never gonna meet this man. And then I tell him, I'm like, yeah, there's like blood stains on the floor. Like, let me know if you see them and let me know if they're still there. Like, you know. And then finally the man realizes that like I'm fucking with him. I'm like, yeah, no, like I'm just kidding. He's like, well, you still gonna come to my night? I'm like, absolutely fucking not. Guys, I feel like my forehead shrank, but like if it didn't, don't tell me it didn't. And he didn't even ask me like why I lied or anything. He was just like, oh my God, that's so funny. And I'm like, I know. And he's like, why don't you come to this other club on Saturday? And I go, I would, but someone died there. Like, so I'm not lying again, right? I'm like, I'm not showing face at that place. Like, absolutely fucking not. No. He's like, I Googled it and someone actually did die there. And I was like, okay, so like I was lying, but like, it wasn't a lie. Go to part 2. Also, like, fuck off because I was trying to do my eyebrows different today and I'm literally never doing that again in my life. Okay, the next thing I did, I'm not very proud of, but like, whatever. Something came over me and I was like, I just need to do, I don't know, it just happened. I told the story on live, but I'll tell it again. On a second date with this guy, I wasn't really like vibing with him that much with anything. I was like, oh, we'll be friends kind of thing, right? Like, I just wasn't, but I was like in between. I was like, give the nice guy a chance, but I was also like, he's a fucking loser. And we're talking and he's like, yeah, like the last relationship I was in was 3.5 years. And I'm like, oh, so like, why did it end? And he's like, well, I cheated. And I'm like, like, as a bitch that was like brutally cheated on, when I hear that someone like has cheated, I'm just always like a little but I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, we change, we grow, things happen, right? I'm like, oh, I'm guessing it was like a one-time thing. And he's like, no. Was it an accident? And he was like, no. I'm like, well, how many fucking people was it? And he was like, it was 4 or 5, maybe 6. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, and so you just continuously cheated on her, like nonstop, basically. And he was like, yeah. I'm like, first of all, why the fuck is this man telling me this? Like, if you're trying to get to know somebody, I would leave this part of my past out of like the equation. Props for being honest, but like, that's a little too fucking honest. Like, I've been cheated on, so like, that's already a sensitive subject, but like, knowing you purposely cheated on this woman, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, why didn't you just leave the relationship? And he was like, well, I don't know, it was like comfortable. I'm like, oh, so you're just a fucking asshole. I didn't say that to him, but like, that's what I got from all this. I'm like, oh, you're literally just a fucking asshole. And I look at him, and as he's telling me this story, I'm like, Livy, you're this man's karma. I took it upon myself. I'm like, no, I'm this motherfucker's karma. So after he's done telling me about all the bitches he slept with, well, he had a full-on girlfriend, and like, just, I get it, it's his past, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm your karma, baby. Hi, I'm Livy. Nice to meet you. He asked me, he's like, what are you doing tonight? And I'm like, oh, you know, I have a date. And he's like, you have a date tonight? What? He was like, I really wanted to hang out. I'm like, yeah, no, sorry. Like, I have a date. He's like, what time? I'm like, well, the man's sending me a car at like 8:15. The car is picking me up. He's like, oh my God, he's sending you a car? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what number date is this? I'm like, it has to be the 3rd. Like, he's taking me to this like 5-star sushi restaurant because like he knows I love sushi. He's like, is this man rich? And I'm like, I don't know if I'd say rich, but he's definitely like well off. And like, I could visibly see him getting sad. So I keep going. Like, you really like this guy. I'm like, well, for our second date, like, he definitely did like rent out the top of the Empire State Building for like an hour and a half. So like, I don't know, he's really just something special. He's like, oh my God, this man sounds amazing. And I'm fully fucking lying. Like, I did not have a date. Like, literally, no, I was lying. I was just like, I'm this man's karma. And he's like, well, can I see you after the date? And I'm like, well, no, like, I'm gonna be sleeping in his bed. And this man's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, what? Like, he's taking me to a really nice sushi restaurant. Like, he rented the fucking top of the Empire State Building for me. You don't think I'm gonna pop some pussy for him? He's like, okay, you're right. Like, you're valid. Okay, I get it. And I'm like, yeah, like, I don't know really what you want from me. He's like, well, I'm sad you're going on a date. I'm like, yeah, no, like, I'm sure you are. Like, I would be too. Guys, like, something came over me. I would normally never fucking do this to a person, but I don't know. I just feel like after you told me you disrespected a woman so many times is like when my real, like, man eater side comes out and I just go balls to the fucking wall. Flash forward later in the night, this man's texting me and he's like, how is your date? And I'm like, it's honestly amazing. As I'm like literally just sitting my ass in my bed, but I'm like, nope, I'm his karma. The next morning he was like, how was your night? I'm like, oh my god, literally, like, I got no sleep. Like, it was crazy. But I don't know what came over me, but girly, if you're his ex-girlfriend and he did you so fucking dirty, just know I had this man like really fucking upset. And I did it for you, and I don't even know you. That's some crazy shit that I definitely did do recently.
Story time about how my father blamed me for getting R-worded. Disclaimer is not my story time on Instagram. I started college 4 months ago. Little context. My parents are extremely strict with me. Never let me date or even have guy friends. I have zero social skills with guys. I can't tell if they like me. I can't tell if they're trying to take advantage of me. I can't even talk to boys. I've never even kissed a boy. Because of all of that, I wanted to live on campus. My parents didn't want me to. I decided that I wanted to. Luckily, my best friend got into the same college, so we decided to dorm together. The very first week, we got invited to a party. This party would turn out to be the worst night of my entire life. We both got ready and looked amazing for the party. We were dressed really well and our hair and makeup was done. When we got to the party, we were offered drinks right away. And boys were swarming us. Oh yeah, and did I mention I had never drank before? 2 drinks later, I was falling down. My best friend was trying to take care of me, but she was also drunk. That's when a guy comes up to me and asked me if I wanted to sleep it off in his room. Guess what happened? To his story time about how my father blamed me for getting R-worded. Disclaimer is not my story time on Instagram. At this point, my best friend and I are both drunk. I literally felt like I had no control over my limbs. I just kept falling down. Suddenly, a guy comes up to me and asks me if I wanted to sleep it off in his room. Because I have no social skills with guys, I thought he was just being nice. I thanked him and he walked me to his room. He sits me down on his bed and proceeds to tuck me in. I asked him if he could bring my best friend, and that's when he said that she had left the party. That is a total lie. My bestie and I would never abandon each other at a party, especially if we were drunk. When he said that, I decided to get up from the bed and he pushed me back down. He tucked me in again, and that's when I fell asleep. I must have slept for about an hour. When I wake up, he's still there watching me. That's when he said, you slept for an hour. Then he just throws himself on top of me, starts kissing and grabbing at me and tearing off my clothes. I'm still drunk at this point and feeling super weak and dizzy. It was like the more I said no, the more he wanted it. And then he penetrated me. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my father blames me for getting R-worded. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's on Instagram. That's when he forces himself on top of me and penetrates me. I'm feeling super dizzy at this point and I proceed to throw up on him. But it's like it didn't matter. He still kept going. Luckily, it only lasted for about 10 seconds because he you know what. Once he got off of me, I was full of vomit, my clothes were half ripped off, and I was trembling uncontrollably. He looks at me and says, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you vomited. And he undresses me and puts me in the shower. And the whole time, I couldn't move or say anything. He gave me a change of clothes and took me back to my apartment. After that, he wouldn't stop texting me. It's like he thought that I liked it. 2 days later, he asked me out on a date. When I said no, he got offended. He shows up after my classes to walk me to my next class, and he tries to steal kisses from me. The worst part is when I told my parents, my father blamed me. He said I shouldn't have gone to the party. My parents are very traditional. Now my dad is thinking marriage. He wants to meet him. So I invited my rapist over for dinner. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for walking around the house in underwear so my husband would ask his brother to stay in a hotel? I used to be close with my brother-in-law, but we aren't anymore due to how he treated my best friend. I don't hate him or anything, but I would prefer he wasn't staying in my home. When my husband told me he was coming to visit, I made it clear I didn't want him staying here. My husband wouldn't budge, said his visit would be shorter if he was here, as they could work out what they were going to do about some family assets they were thinking about selling more quickly. Seeing him in my home was irritating me, especially since he's the type of person who loves making dumb sarcastic jokes constantly. I tried asking my husband to ask him to go stay in a hotel 2 days into his visit, but he again wouldn't budge. So I outright told my brother-in-law I didn't want him here, but that still wasn't enough to make him leave. I finally decided to walk around the house in my underwear because I knew he wouldn't be able to resist making a stupid comment and it would annoy my husband enough to make him ask his brother to stay in a hotel, which is exactly what happened. After my husband told him to go, my brother-in-law accused me of thinking I was hot stuff who tried to lead my husband around by his dick and made a point to tell me it would backfire if I kept this up. My husband also asked me if I wasn't going to continue the show during a fight, as I stopped doing it once his brother left, as my husband often has guests coming and going during the day, which made walking around our home in my underwear awkward. He was already upset with me, but the fact that I stopped immediately after his brother left seems to upset him even more.